The Pursuit of Happiness. I'm going to talk about this book, how classical writers on virtue inspired the lives of the founders and defined America. So the classical writers on virtue are the Stoics, right? Seneca, Cicero, and the founders of America, people like Thomas Jefferson, John Adams. This is a really interesting book. It's interesting from a historical perspective, that intersection of values. But I also learned a lot about Stoicism. I talk about Stoicism in this channel some because I find that there's a really nice overlap with Stoic thinking and some of the sutra practice that comes along with Buddhism. But I'm by no means a particularly well-read student of Stoicism, so I learned a lot on both buckets of information, both about the history of the founding and the content of the writers, the Stoic writers that are that the founders of America read. I finished this book actually in the beginning of June. I had it with me when we were away for a week in Ithaca. Ithaca in New York is about four and a bit hours away from where I live. It's in a very beautiful part of the country, the Finger Lakes region of New York State. It's a really beautiful area, and for the last 4 or 5 years, my family, have gone up there for a week as a vacation, and I do like that part of the country. The short story that I published a few months ago that's available on my website, I'll put it in the show notes. The Barnhouse Lacunae was conceived in the Finger Lakes, and there's a close correlation between the landscape and the stories. I find myself sort of really integrated with the land. That space is just conducive to meditation, I find. I'm not entirely sure why, but I do find it. So that was back in June. It's now here as I record this in the middle of August. So it's been a while since I recorded a video, and no good reason for that except summer and vacations, and I've been excessively busy at my job, which is unusual for the summer, but I got a little bit of a promotion, and with that came a little bit of extra work. Anyway, one of the things that's really interesting in this book, right up front, is the pursuit of happiness. What is happiness? And this was like a light bulb going off, because it's such a central phrase, the life and the liberty and the pursuit of happiness. It's sort of the beginning of the American Constitution. And Socrates talks about what is happiness. It never occurred to me to think what we mean when we say the pursuit of happiness in that historical, like American founding context. It's just too easy to assume that it means the accumulation of material goods. I think if we were to sort of poll the zeitgeist today, kind of see in America, and maybe in European countries, I don't know, but certainly in America, the vibe would be the pursuit of happiness is the acquisition of material goods and wealth. That is what allows us to freely pursue happiness, is the accumulation of money. But of course, that's not what Socrates meant, and it's clearly not what the founding fathers meant either. Here, I'm going to read some quotes here. the central lesson that Adams and Jefferson had learned from Pythagoras' golden verses and Cicero's Tusculan disputations. So I had never read the Tusculan disputations until I finished this, and then I got a copy. I'll come back to those in a different video, because it's astonishing how fresh those writings are. Okay, and from Cicero. Okay, that we are. So here's the points: we are what we think, and life is shaped by the mind. That happiness requires virtue, and virtue requires the cultivation of daily habits of self-mastery and mental tranquility. That we should think and act mindfully rather than impulsively, using our powers of reason to moderate our ego-based passions, and that we should do good for its own sake rather than acting with any expectations about the reactions of others. So that's all, that's right from Socrates. At the end here, these are from letters that Jefferson and Adams exchanged later in their life. Jefferson agreed with Adams that the goal of the pursuit of happiness was tranquility of mind. Although at the end of his life, he declared himself to be not a Stoic, but an Epicurean. Jefferson said, this is a quote, "The perfection of the moral character is not in a stoical apathy, but in a just equilibrium of all the passions." Okay, so I'm fairly certain that in today's political discussion, and we're in the middle of presidential campaign right now. In the last 9 years, we've been in the middle of presidential politics. I am quite successfully turning off social media, and in fact, most media. I just can't deal with it anymore. I have a couple of Substacks that I like to read. And a couple of podcasts that I listen to. So I read and listen to pretty much anything Sam Harris puts out. I read and listen to pretty much anything Andrew Sullivan puts out. Although Sullivan, Jesus, I love him. I have. But I'm deeply disagreeing with his assessment right now. That's okay. That's why I read him, because I disagree with him. What else? I like to listen to the Malcolm Gladwell podcast. And then I read Wonkat. And you should too, because it's the smartest political comment. So between all of that, I get a pretty good selection. Even Sullivan, you could say, is center left, although he would argue that he's whatever. He's not center left. Center left doesn't mean anything anymore now, right? Well, you've got Donald Trump floating around. Doesn't mean anything anymore. And the thing I like about Wonkat is, aside from the fact that it is brilliant writing, they pull in all the bonkers, wackadoodle stuff that I wouldn't be able to find. So I get exposed to, it's like I used to listen to Rush Limbaugh when he was still alive, and maybe 20 years ago, it was vaguely entertaining. I don't know. I fucking hated Rush Limbaugh, but I listened quite a lot. Anyway, we are what we think, and life is shaped by the mind. So that's the very first opening of the Dhammapada, right? The mind follows what's put into it. That's why this social media stuff is so important. When I really discern, and I say, okay, turn social media off, the thing that worries me most is, I'll lose track of my friends. Will I? When I say friends, I mean the people that I went to college with, who I haven't, some of them I stay in touch with, but the ones I stay in touch with isn't through Facebook. It's a delusion. But if I want to stay in touch with them, I'm going to send them an email or write a letter. I mean, right? I was just listening to something that Cal Newport said. I'm not sure if I like Cal Newport or not, but let's say I do. It was basically like, think of the time you spend on media, not just social media, but media. And let's say even conservatively, it's 10 hours a week. Turn that off, and instead, one day a week, go to a social club of some kind. Like, I'm worried also that I would be somehow sacrificing my musical persona if I'm not on Facebook. Well, so I've joined a music club, the Tuesday Music Society, what it's called, which is quite a large group here in Pittsburgh. It's been around for 100 years. People get together once a month and play music. We are what we think, and life is shaped by the mind. That happiness requires virtue. So the pursuit of happiness is the pursuit of virtue. But not, again, if you were to sink into the morass of today's political discussion and asked what is virtue, you'd get all kinds of alarm bells from people who didn't want to be pinned down to some kind of, I don't know. Or you get a bunch of bonkers bullshit about, like, Christian nationalism and so what is virtue? Virtue is the cultivation of daily habits of self-mastery and mental tranquility. So it's the sutra, it's the 10 precepts. Or it's Franklin's list of disciplines, right? You can get up early, read for an hour. Drink a gallon of water a day. Exercise twice a day. This is the lifestyle I'm adopting right now. 75 hard. Again, Andy Frisella, I have this sort of schizophrenic relationship with him because Google Andy Frisella, 75 hard. On the one hand, he has a big, empathic heart and a lot of wisdom about how to do things with your incarnation. And on the other hand, he's flipped his lid in terms of, once you start calling Joe Biden a Stalinist, I think it's batshit. But the cultivation of daily habits. Who are you? You are what you do. Right? I would even articulate it differently. You are the doing of what you say you will do. It doesn't matter what that list is. I mean, it shouldn't be things that violate the cultivation of wholesome karma, right? You shouldn't say, I'm going to go out and kill a dog every day and then do it. There's nothing virtuous about that. But if I say I'm going to meditate 3 times a day, I'm going to put out 2 videos a week. Right, yeah. I'm going to study French 3 times a day. I'm not saying, right? It could be any of those things. And even those things, what does it mean to study French? It could be doing a Duolingo lesson. It could be reading Camus for half an hour. I'm not saying what it is. It's just 3 of them. And then when I do those and track them, it is the doing of the habit. We are the doing of what we say we will do. I'm going to write that down. We are the doing of what we say we will do. It's a little bit different from cultivation of daily habits, but not really. I think that's what they mean when they say cultivation. This is what they mean. Do what you say you're going to do. The mental tranquility comes with that, right? If it's the end of the day, and you can look back and say, I did what needed to be done. Right? I have these basic processes that just need to be maintained. And then there's usually 1 or 2 really important things that just need to get done, whether things at work, things at home. One of the things I do each morning, and you all do this too as well, is what's the one thing that if I don't get done today, I'm going to feel like shit? Could be anything. My shoes got really muddy last week. We were away camping. My boots, they got really muddy. It's been bugging me that they're just dry. They got wet as well, so they've needed to dry. But now they're just muddy. I clean them. I said I'm going to clean them today. I haven't done it yet, and it's bugging me. It doesn't have to be big things. It doesn't have to be go out and make $1 million. Right? I will feel tranquil tonight if I've cleaned those shoes. And we should think and act mindfully rather than impulsively. This is the sutra. This is the cultivation of wholesome activities. And the founding fathers, terrible phrase, the founders, the people who wrote the founding documents knew this. That's why we should never treat these documents, the Constitution, as a sort of immutable artifact that can be, it can somehow be applied as is. It has to change. Using our powers of reason to moderate our ego-based passions. Remember, this is what virtue is. This is what happiness is. This is the pursuit of happiness. Go to a political rally of any kind and say, hey, virtue, the pursuit of happiness, the reason that we have a democracy is so that you can moderate your ego-based passions. If we all sat and thought about that, and then we should do good for its own sake rather than acting with any expectations about the reactions of others. That's a complicated one, right? Because, and I don't remember where in the Republic, but this is where I think where the Republic starts is, Socrates is asked if a powerful man does wicked without being caught to their benefit, why wouldn't they be happy? It's interesting, right? So that is the pursuit of happiness, the pursuit of virtue, which is the cultivation of daily habits. And for me, those habits are around meditation practice. They are around music, composition, practicing the piano, writing music, and sort of filling my mind with stoic virtues, I guess. Maybe that's a bit redundant. But all of those pieces that I put together are to cultivate my focus on those disciplines. And they all have their own thing, right? Meditation has its own framework and guideline. Writing music, composition, can easily veer into kind of a brittle ego affair. And I'm really working on checking it and writing only what resonates with my heart. And then seeing what comes from that. So I won't go on much longer. I want to get this video out because it's been the first in 2 months, which is terrible. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe, of course. I do have a Substack. I haven't put anything on it yet, but I'm going to start doing that. All kinds of stuff going on. So keep your wits about you.